And at this time, like I was around 10 years old, they made a mistake in the process and it was basically terminated. In that moment, I'm like, I'm never going to see my family again. Remember, and I looked out the window. I've never seen so many lights in my entire life. And it hit me that like, I'm in America now.
First, welcome to the channel. The first question that I always ask, the first and the last are always the same. And the first question is, what made you leave your country behind a few years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a couple, I would say like about 2 decades now. Um, for me personally, when I was a little, I migrated here at a very young age. So when I was growing up as a little girl being in my country, this idea of migration and coming to America, it seems like it was like more of like a generational thing. Like my family was always excited about the fact that we were going to move to America one day. And so like I grew up with this idea that like, yeah, one day I'm going to move to America and watching TV and seeing American culture, I was really excited about that. Mind you, I grew up in Guyana and back in the 90s, it was still a very much a third world country. It's gotten a little better now, but then I wouldn't know where things would have been, access to healthcare and, medicine and education, things like that. It was lacking when I was growing up. So when I would watch TV and I see these kids on television, it seemed like they had a more exciting, a better life. And I was like really excited for that. So it was this idea that was ingrained from, a very young age that like, oh, we're going to America one day. And like, I got excited about that. That's something that I always look forward to. Not that I moved for a specific reason, but it's just something that I was told growing up. Like, yeah, we're going to move to America one day. Like that was something I was like always looking forward to. So it was a
Interesting.
little bit out of my control. Yeah.
Sounds familiar with my son. Um, you're on the East Coast, right?
Yeah. I'm based in Stamford, Connecticut right now. I used to live in New York I've been in New York since I moved to America, actually. And then we just recently, 2 years now, I moved up to Stamford, because I've been in New York for a lot of my life. I said, I want to see what it's like, outside of the city for a little bit.
Yeah. You mentioned that you immigrated when you were young. I wonder how that big jump was from Guyana to New York at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's actually interesting. My story's a little unconventional than most people who migrate to America. So, like I said, when I was younger, I knew that my family was supposed to be coming to America, but in the process, in the immigration process, there were some complications, and basically, it started from my mom. She was sponsored by her family. Basically, within that 10-year period, she got married, and so she had a family, and so they had to start the process all over again. And so once we did that, we were so close with like sponsorship with her whole family now, and we were like maybe just a few years off, and they made a mistake in the process and it was basically terminated. And then our application had to start all over from the beginning again. And so the process was a little complicated. And just from my memories, remember when I was growing up, that was going to add another 10 years. And at that time, the crime rate was really terrible. I was doing really well in school, and my mom was really scared that, like, if I had to travel very far to the city for school, it wasn't going to be safe for me. So my family had to make a very tough decision. In order for me to continue my education and feel safe, they decided to only have me migrate by myself to America. And at this time, like I was around 10 years old, 10, 11.
Ooh.
And so, yeah, my mom decided, she can't have me, have us fear for our lives sort of thing. So I don't know how, but they decided to send me by myself. And so I got on a plane and I came to America and I ended up living with my grandparents. And so for me, it just sort of like abruptly happened. Like I knew that I was going to America, but this happened at like nighttime. Like I was getting on a plane and like things were a little fuzzy, and then all of a sudden I was here. And so it was a little rough because I had this expectation I was coming to America with my entire family, and
Mm.
this was going to be a dream and everything was going to be great. But that separation in the beginning kind of like caused a lot of like the hardship in the beginning of my life, like being 10, 11 years old, migrating here, having to start a school year in the middle of
Wow.
when everyone's like starting their semester, everyone's got their friend groups, you're going into a completely new country, there's like a little bit of language barrier here or there. I mean, Guyana spoke English, but it was really rough, starting school and kids being very mean at that age, not understanding when someone's different or new. And so I had to face a lot of that kind of by myself because I was here without my close family. And my grandparents, they spoke English and stuff, but they weren't really familiar with a lot of things too at that point. So even though I was living with my grandparents here in America, at that age, I had to navigate and learn very quickly and assimilate very quickly, the first like 3, 4 years of my life here when I first moved.
Wow.
I mean, and then that's just like very surface level, like sugarcoating the experience. I mean, it was challenging. I was like homesick a lot. I called my mom. I was really sad. I was kept asking like, when am I going to see them again? And they were kind of trying to figure out like, okay, now that we're starting from the beginning again, we had to wait another like 10 years. And like my mom was like trying to figure out like, okay, how are we going to be separated like this? The next best thing that they thought would be good just because I was homesick and I needed someone is they sent my sister. So they sent
Mhm.
my younger sister.
Ooh.
She's 5 years younger than me. She came here when she was like 5 or 6 years old. So not only did I have to navigate being young here and learning my things myself, when my sister came, I felt like I had to become her protector because now
Right.
she's even younger. She's going to school. She's facing the same challenges I was, but I sort of like became the parent for my sister essentially, because I remember, I don't know, I was very young. I was going to like her PTA meetings,
Wow.
basically, and the teachers were telling me like, hey, your sister needs help in homework and you need to like help her get her grades up and things like that. And so I'm like, okay, so like I used to help my sister with homework and like prepping meals and like basically doing all the thing a parent would do for my sister and kind of like ignoring, like for me it shifted from me being like navigating the challenges I was going through, then like focusing on my sister, making sure that she was protected.
Mhm.
And so the two of us had to like kind of, navigate those early years together that way as young children here,
Wow.
with such a big move. Yeah.
I have so many feelings. The whole thing, it's fascinating in a way, and
Uh-huh.
I guess, and that's an
Yeah.
understatement probably. Um,
Hmm.
I'm also thinking that you started by saying that this was kind of a dream, no? Or always hearing, talking about. I mean, so suddenly the dream became
This
the amount of
beautiful.
steps that went down fast. You're like, wow,
Yeah, it was a wake up call, I want to
right.
say. Not to say like all the things that I dreamed of didn't come true. I mean, I was in this country that was amazing and beautiful. Like I remember seeing snow for the first time,
Mm,
experiencing winter, and it was so cold, but it was just like, back then when we had like real winter storms, you know what I mean?
mm,
Like we had like snow days, in school clothes and whatnot. Like those were like really magical time as a kid, but it's kind of like an interesting mix because I do have these like memories of like seeing and experiencing things for the first time. Like I didn't know what Halloween was. You get to
mm.
dress up and do fun things like that. Trying pizza for the first time,
Wow.
that was amazing. And like being able to like go to the grocery store and be able to get food very easily and access the things and like I go to a doctor and it's just, so accessible. Like those things were amazing to experience the first time. So I really like understood why everyone wanted to come here. But at the same time, it was just like it's not this like beautiful, easy dream that you think you're gonna come and get everything. You really have to like work very hard for it. No matter how old you are, no matter the age that you come here, I feel like that's like the wake up call, the truth of it all. Like you kind of it's not handed to you. You kind of like have to navigate a lot of challenges to get those things that you've been looking forward to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If I may ask, just out of curiosity, but because you mentioned the meetings at school that you had to go to,
Mhm.
does that mean that even though your grandparents were there, you had to navigate life mostly on your own, like going to a doctor or whatever? Like, were you doing that on your own? Hmm.
They speak the language, but there's some barriers in terms of like understanding complex things
Hmm.
or, like they would take me to the doctor. Like my grandparents were able to get me like healthcare. They would take me to the offices, but like in terms of like the
The
doctors
communication.
speaking about like health conditions or recommendations or things you have to
Right.
do, like I had to like help them understand what they meant. So like
Mhm.
complex ideas and things like that, it was just hard for them to really like understand. It wasn't necessarily like a language barrier, it's more of like an understanding sort of
Mhm.
situation. And so even with my sister, when I was going to her school, like things like helping her with homework, like my grandparents wouldn't be able to
Right.
help her with that. They don't even know, they don't know the educational systems here. I mean, I didn't either. Like I was coming from a school where we were British colonies, so our like math systems are different, our the
Mm.
way that we learn English is different. So it was just kind of like switching over to like the American standards. Granted, like our education system in Guyana was like ahead. So when I did migrate
Mm.
here, I was a class ahead. I was a grade ahead. So like I was taking like advanced classes and advanced math courses and things like that because I was already learning, that one grade ahead. So with my sister, it was easy for me to help her with like, projects and
Right.
homework and things like that. But yeah, my grandparents were there, but to answer your question, yes, I did have to basically do a lot of things by myself. And they worked. My grandparents worked a lot, so they were living in, like my grandmother was like a home health aide, so she helped like older people, and so a lot of them she would have to live in during the week. And so my grandfather was the only one that was home during the daytime. He worked in the evening, so me and my sister, eventually were by ourselves a
Mm.
good chunk of time. We had other family members that were here also, like my aunts and uncles. And when we first moved here, everyone was so kind to us. They bought us clothing and like helped us get adjusted, school supplies. Of course,
Mhm.
we had, that kind of support. But it's different when you don't have your parents, and you don't have that like mother, father figure at those key age, and a little bit of safety also kind of goes away. Like you don't have that safety, that comfort of your parents. That's yes, you have other family members, but it's still a little scary and nerve-wracking also. Yeah, during those early days.
It sounds fascinating and incredible and humbling and a lot of other words. It's like
Yes.
I'm impressed in like I told you, I lived something somewhat similar, but it's not even close. Like when my son came to the US, he was 5 or 6,
hmm
and he didn't want, like, it was a really tough time. In his case, his language in school was Spanish and had to transition to English, so that's different. But
Right.
even with me and my wife here, it was really tough. And he would go to school and stay at the entrance of the stairs crying because he didn't want to go in because of everything,
Yeah.
some of the stuff you
hmm
just mentioned. So I cannot imagine the same situation, but without the parents. It's just impressive that you manage to
I
take it
don't know how I
day by
managed.
day. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. There's moments in my life with my story where I call it like the magical moments. The way I tell you, sometimes it just sounds like made up, but it's not.
Mm.
So there was a period in my life when we were living here with me and my sister. We were basically getting to the fact that we might not see our parents for a while. Like we just had to accept that. It was a very hard thing to work through as a child.
Mhm.
And I just remembered, I don't know why things happened at nighttime, but I remember there was a moment my mom came, and that was good. She came here, but then she was working. Like the first thing that you do when you come to this country, you just have to find work. And so my mom was a stay-at-home mom in Guyana. She came here, she had to learn about working, and so she started babysitting. It was the only job that she can get because she's not educated. She didn't have a degree, so she started taking on childcare. But in doing so, she was also living in, so she worked with a family in Queens. We didn't see her during the week. We only saw her for a couple of hours on Sundays, and then she'd have to go back to work. So it was like that for a little bit, while she tried to save up and for us to start basically building a life here from scratch now that she was here. And I remember we were so happy that we had her. And the next thing was finally to get my dad here. And that, for some reason, was getting more complicated. And we were like, we might not ever see my dad. Like, I don't know what was going on. There was some complications again. We were like, yeah, he might not even be able to come anymore. And it was like that for a few years. And then there was a moment where I remember I was sleeping and I thought I was dreaming because I kept hearing my dad's voice. And I woke up and I saw that the lights are on in the living room, and I came outside, and it was like my dad, but I couldn't recognize him, and I thought I was still dreaming. I thought I was sleepwalking because my dad had shaved. He my in my entire life, my dad had a mustache, and like I haven't seen him in person in years, so he had shaved his mustache, but he's standing in the living room and he's looking at me. He's like, I'm here, and I'm like, no, you're not. Then I'm again thinking I'm dreaming, but then like it finally hit me, and I'm like, oh my god, my dad is here, and then like my mom was there, and it just felt like this like crazy like reuniting moment, like waking up and like hearing his voice, and then like my dad's here in this living room, like he just showed up, you know. So that was like the like one of the craziest moments I remember, you know, in our story when our family finally got reunited. It, you know, like we enjoyed that for a little while, and then now it's like, okay, my dad has to find work, and that was a little bit rough too because you know he did construction and he was doing really well in Guyana. You know, it was they were starting to develop. He would get a lot of projects, and so when he moved here, when you're in constructions, you need credentials, you need license, and so he couldn't. Uh, Kind of do the same you know work here, so he had to start from the very beginning, like he had to start from scratch as a handyman. Even though he was a brilliant construction worker, he kind of had to you know build from the beginning again. And for a while I remember that you know we were struggling. My mom was the only one that was working. You know, we were with my grandparents, but financially it was you know there's all of us now, so it was becoming a strain at that time. But even though things were rough, we still had ways to survive in a way. Like in America, like you still, if we were in Guyana, we knew that things would be bad. We don't know if we would, where we would get food from. But for some reason here it was a little bit better. There's so many different options and things you could do to like get by, and programs, and you know access to different you know things that you could do, and getting healthcare and whatnot. So we were able to get by in those early days, and eventually my dad found a good job, and then like he built a reputation and experience, and you know that just kept going. In the last couple of years, yeah, we've been you know building up our lives here. I would say we're finally in a good place now. I will you know 2 decades later, but yeah, those I'm talking about like early days when we first came here, like starting out from nothing.
It sounds like a movie already.
Yeah.
We're not even half the question. Thank you for sharing all this.
Of course.
That's incredible. One question that I have, because you've been in this country for years now and you came young,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like an immigrant? How do you manage being from here but also being from somewhere else? How does that feel?
This is a question I've been thinking about for a while now. Actually, it's a weird place to be. You know, trying to figure out like culture wise where I belong, sort of. And sometimes you can feel a little lost. I will say, you know, when I first moved here, and you know, it was just recent that I moved from Guyana. I felt like okay, I had my culture. I felt Guyanese. You know, I felt very protective over that culture, and like I wanted to share with people like, oh, I'm from this country, and I wanted to share more information about it. And then, you know, after all of the work that we put in to be American, and now being here and getting my citizenship and going through the naturalization process, it's interesting because yes, I'm American on paper, but all of this experience and things that I've gone through and I've carried with me, it's like a weird place because you're like, is that what most Americans are? Like you're on paper, yes, you're in this country, you're American, and you can feel very patriotic, but a lot of us like have similar stories of this like background we have, unless you were born in the country. So for me, like I'm not born here, and yes, I'm American, but I don't feel super American at the same time. I feel like what shaped me as a person is my experience as an immigrant. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's sometimes it is a weird place to be because now it's like I've been kind of like distance from my Guyanese culture that I don't exactly feel fully like Guyanese anymore. Like I know the culture, I feel like prideful of that, but at the same time, like I've grown and I've become more westernized, I want to say. I don't know. It's a hard question, I will say. I don't know if that's making any sense.
I think that, I mean, to start with, I'm not one to judge if a question is going or
Yeah.
not going or works or doesn't.
Yeah, yeah.
But to me, that exact point that you're making is the one that feels strange, and it shifts. And even some days, I think some people feel one way, and then the next day you wake up, something happens, and you feel a different way. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a fluid. The answer
Exactly.
is
It changes.
fluid, no?
Yeah, I think so too. You know, when you think about home, right? Like when you think about like where your home is, or where you feel, not like you fit in, but what feels natural to you. Like I feel like here makes sense. Like I feel like if I were to go back to Guyana today, I would feel like that's not the place for me. Strangely, I feel like I fit in better here. Like I feel like this is home for me. America is like, just personally, like just the way that I've grown up and my ideologies and things like that. Like I do like how there's in America, everyone it's more about the individual. You're free to express yourself and more about that individuality. Most country, it's about community and like group mentality and being judged if you're kind of deviating from that. So those are things that I don't always agree with. But I think here I do like the sense of like freedom that you do have. So I feel like when I think about home and like where I fit in mostly too, I feel like here where I'm at makes the most sense for me today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that I can connect with, I mean, a different feeling, but I can connect with that. In my mind will be stability and the lack of stability in my country of origin. One question that I have, if you want to go there, I was thinking of how brave and many other words you were to navigate what you had to navigate. But I'm thinking that your parents that stayed back also had to be super brave to go through this and say, okay, this is the best for you, so we'll be fine. But it must be really hard for them. Do you remember?
Tough. It was very, very tough. I mean, for both of my parents, it's you know, it was like a very rough decision. You know what I mean? It's like they have to like get into a mental space of like letting their children go essentially at such a young age. For my mom especially, it was very hard. But to put into perspective, if a parent has to make a decision like that, there's got to be something that's driving them to get to that point, right?
Mhm.
So it's more about like what outweighs the other. Like the country is so bad that my parents are put in this position that they have to send their children somewhere else for safety and for resources, because if we stay there, the chances of survival might be low. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it sounds like it's dramatized, but it's actually not. Like during those times, we don't have a crystal ball. We have no idea how the country was going to be developed. We only know day by day we're living, we're trying to make end meet, we're trying to get food, we're trying to get, healthcare and things like that. And it just wasn't going anywhere, and they saw this opportunity and they had to make this really, really tough decision to do so. So it's about, for me, this has been the question that's like shaped a lot of like who I am as a person today in terms of like coming from a place of humbleness, because a lot of people, when we think about immigration and things like that, like no one stops for a second to think about like what makes people make these decisions to go through. And in my case, like I'm so grateful, like I'm not crossing crazy borders. I'm not like put in a situation where it's like life or death to do that migration process. Like I'm grateful to the fact that I still got on a plane and got here in a safe way. But the decision for my parents was still really tough. And for many other people, even though they know how they're coming here and they have this dream, they're coming from a place, they're coming from an environment where it's not safe and it's dangerous and it's like survival. Like they're making these decisions for survival reasons sometimes. My situation specifically, I came here out of the necessity of like survival kind of. Yeah, and that's what basically led my parents to make that decision. And it's something I'm super grateful for. One of the reasons I worked so hard and studied hard and went to school and did all the things was because I knew what my parents sacrificed. I knew they gave up so much. They gave up their entire life. My dad was doing so well. He was a great construction worker. We had a fair, like, on top of everything, like we were a happy family there, and they gave up that. They gave up relationships that they had there to take a chance and come to a country and start all over again. That is a very huge sacrifice. And I never forget that every single day that I live and every decision that I make, I come from that place to know like I work hard and I build my successes here because I know like the sacrifices my parents made in order for me to have this life essentially here. And for them too. Yeah, to
Right.
have that. Hmm.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love every word of it. Yeah, it makes me think about a lot of things.
So anyway, so 10 years, so 10 years after living here in America, we finally had the interview. We got our basically got like an appointment to go in for an interview, and at this interview, this is where you get to figure out if you stay in the country or not. This is where they decide, the immigration officer decides if you're going to get accepted or if you're going to get your green card or whatever the case is. And our appointment was like 8 o'clock in the morning. It was very, very nerve wracking because we got in our appointment, but something happened and we ended up having to wait there the entire day. So we didn't actually see the immigration officer until like the end of the day, almost like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But anyways, we get into the office and we're there together with my family and they're interviewing us about, what I'm doing in school, what we do, what my parents do for work, just basically as a family, what have we done the last 10 years since we've been here? That's all they ask you. They let you go. And the next thing you have to do, you have to wait for a mail to get a letter to tell you if you get to stay or you get to go back or you get your green card. It could go either way. So 2 or 3 weeks went by and every single day we're like freaking out because like now we've lived here for so long, we've built a life here now. What are the chances that they deny us and they send us back? Like, what do we do at that point? And so this was in December. This is like right around Christmas time. We can't even focus on the holiday because we're so nervous about getting sent back or figuring out like, what the situation is going to be. Are we going to get a green card or not? Every week I'm checking the mailbox because as usual, I'm the one responsible for a lot of things. So I had the keys to our mailbox. I would check the mail every day. Nothing would happen. It was the week of Christmas or like the week coming up for Christmas, I remember. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take a break from this. Like I just want to enjoy the holidays and not focus on this anymore. I'm so stressed out. And it was Christmas Eve. And we didn't check mail that day, but there was something in my gut that was telling me like I should check the mailbox. It's been a while. It's Christmas Eve. What are the chances? On Christmas Eve, I checked the mailboxes and I got the mail. And in the mail, I could tell it was our green card in it. And I was in the mailbox. Like if there was a video camera, I wish you could see. Like I was like sitting there shaking the envelope, like going crazy. I was so happy. And then I had this like crazy idea. I'm like, I'm gonna put these on our Christmas tree. So we woke up a Christmas morning and I woke up everyone super early. Everyone's like, why are you waking us up so early? Like they were so mad about it. I'm like, I think Santa brought us like a really great Christmas gift. You guys should go check the tree. So we all woke up and my parents went, they saw the envelope. They're like, what is this? Like, and I'm like, open it and see what it is. And I kid you not, again, like these moments that happen, it sounds so unrealistic, but Christmas morning we opened it up and it was our green card that I had left in the tree. And we got through. And yeah, that was how we got our residency here. Like that one gives me goosebumps when I think about it. It's like the craziest moment. And I'm so glad that I went and I checked the mailbox that Christmas Eve day. Mm-hmm.
If you're someone that never believed in Christmas, you started believing then.
Yes, I know.
Wow.
I've always thought about writing a book for myself, kind of similar to what you're doing, actually. So I'm happy to be like contributing to this. Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating. Thank you. And I love the idea of the book, I have to say. The next question is, if you close your eyes and go back in time, you're sitting on that plane the day you had to leave the country behind and going on your own to the US, what comes to mind? Do you remember what you were thinking or feeling?
I remember like if it was like yesterday. It's a feeling that I will never forget almost. I'll share another crazy story. So when I was supposed to come that day, that is the day that I found out that I'm coming here alone. My parents was not communicating with me that we were not coming together as a family. So the day of my travels, I remember we were going to the airport and we were all there. But then when it's time to check in and go like through the process, they weren't coming with me. And so you can imagine, when you're expecting your family to come with you, you get to the airport and they're like, my mom was like crying and it was a lot of emotions. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And at that point, I'm like, I didn't want to go anymore. I'm like, what do you mean you're not coming with me? And so I did travel with an older woman who was kind of like my guardian for the flight. And it was a stranger, like I was meeting for the first time. And so I had to just follow her. They're like, this is the woman you're traveling with, stay with her and she'll get you through everything and, you'll be okay. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm going to be okay? Like, you guys aren't coming. And I'm never going to forget that because it was such a traumatic experience for me, kind of finding out at that point that I'm not I'm not coming here with my family. They're not getting on a plane with me. And the whole plane ride, I was upset and I was like emotional and I actually got really sick and like I was vomiting, like, like that's how bad it was. And I don't want to go to America anymore. Like I just want to stay now. And like I think they did that for a reason, because if they told me sooner that they weren't coming with me, I might have not agreed to it. So I was getting on that plane and realizing that, oh, in that moment, I'm like, I'm never going to see my family again. And I'm going into this whole new
Wow.
country. There's a lot of emotions, a lot of big emotions for a child, 10, 11 years old.
Again, I have nothing but admiration for your parents that were brave enough and strong enough to keep it to themselves because of what you just said. That if they
Yeah.
had told you, probably, I don't know, the outcome would have been different, probably.
Yeah, I woke up and I was like, we were landing in New York. And I remember that, I was getting through customs and whatnot, and I was being so nervous because I'm a child, and like, I don't know, for some reason in America, like everyone feels more authoritative here. And again, another scary moment as a kid, like trying to get through immigration, like, all of that. And then I finally met up with my grandparents and they picked me up from the airport. I remember that. And I think I calmed down for a second when we were driving over. I forgot what bridge it was, but whatever bridge is like you go over from the airport, you see the skyline of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was nighttime and I was in the car, I remember, and I looked out the window and I see this like New York City skyline, and it hit me that like I'm in America now. Like, oh wait, like I'm here. And like I saw like like had this moment, like I saw like the New York City like skylines, and it was just so many lights. I've never seen so many lights in my entire life. And it was just like this beautiful, crazy moment. Like I just had this flight separating from my family, but then I get to New York and I'm seeing this for the first time. And it was just like, again, it was just like magical for me. I'm like, wow, I'm in New York, and like, look at this like skyline and the lights. And it was just like, yeah, a lot of things happening in a short amount of time, I will
Sure.
say. Uh-huh.
Fascinating, fascinating stuff. What would you say succeeding as an immigrant is?
For me and my family situation, I think success for us was to kind of see the like your sacrifices being paid off, in the sense where we can have a comfortable
Mhm.
life in America, right? Where we have food on the table, we have work, we have access to the things that we didn't have access to before, right? Like the hardships and all of the things that we've gone through to make it here in this country, I feel like that's successful. And we're not like crazy rich, we don't have mansions, we don't have cars and luxury. We have basic necessity, and I think that's what I think is successful, right? My parents' sacrifices, you know apply to me being the first college graduate in my family.
Mhm.
Like back in the day, like we thought that was success. Like we're like, okay, we made it. Like we came here to this country, we got jobs, I went to college. Like that's the American dream, right? But I think the first major one for us was like reuniting again as a family.
Mhm.
Like I think that moment with my dad in the living room, like having my family together, like that was successful. All of us in the country that we've always dreamed of together, reunited. Like that for me was, I don't know, like the moment, I would say.
Just it won't. No matter how many folks I interview, I don't think it will get bigger than that.
Yeah, right.
Well, that it's a nice bridge into the last question, which is the way you see it and the way you feel inside. What's an immigrant? What is it? What does that feel like?
I feel like an immigrant is someone who, they have this goal in mind. Like if you're moving one place to another, no matter what country, for whatever reason,
Mhm.
it's the fact that you can start all over again. You have the ability to start from nothing, essentially, and build a whole new life, because that's what an immigrant is. Like you're migrating, like you're giving up your life in one place to start another in a completely different environment, a different culture, and you have to, like, most people will assimilate also. So I think it's just having that ability to move from one place to another, and being successful, whatever success looks like to you, like being successful, like that's an immigrant. If you go back to the country, then, like if you're like, oh, this isn't for me, it didn't work out, or it's too hard, then that's not a successful immigrant, I guess, right? Like you couldn't make it work for you, which is fine. That happens to most people. We were in that position at one point too. We were like, should we go back? This is too hard. What do we do? But circumstances didn't allow for that. When you some people, if you can move back, but you still have everything there, then that makes sense for some people. But sometimes you can't. If you give up everything, you have nothing to go back to, essentially.
Right.
So I think if you have the grit, perseverance, hardworking, to make it work, like that's what an immigrant is. Yeah.
Tash, that was incredible, honestly. And I really appreciate your time and sharing all these stories. And for you on the other side, you know the drill by now. But it's okay. Today you can skip the like button or the subscribe button. Just put a comment below. I think this was a really interesting interview. So I would love to read your comments. What did you think? See you on the next video, okay?